Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to do MCQs to understand how to choose appropriate test statistic. Okay, but before doing the MCQ, let me give you a small recap. See, you can choose chi-square, ANOVA, G-test and different types of t-test. But when to choose which one? That depends on your sample data. If your sample data is categorical, then you will go for chi-square test. If you are comparing means of three different kinds of samples, then in that case you have to use ANOVA. Or let's say you are comparing proportions like 30%, 50%. In that case you have to select G-test. But if you are comparing means and you know the population standard deviation and your sample size is greater than 30, if this condition satisfies, then also you do G-test for means. Okay. But if your population deviation is not known and your sample size is less than 30, then you have to go for t-test. Now t-test is of many types. One sample, independent sample, paired sample. So one sample t-test is when you are comparing sample mean with a known population mean. Okay, then in that case one sample t-test. But let's say you compare two means of two independent groups, two different kinds of samples and you want to compare their means. That case you have to use independent samples t-test. Clear? But if you are comparing before and after data, like same sample but before and after, it's like let's say a group of students and you have provided them a training. So you want to compare their performance before training and after training. In that scenario you have to use paired sample t-test. Okay, so these are the type of test you can perform while doing hypothesis testing. Now we are not going to discuss the test in details, but which one to choose when, that we have understood. Okay, now let's do the MCQs. So which test is appropriate for comparing means of two independent samples? See, two independent sample. See, two independent group, independent samples t-test. Okay, so we'll go for this. If you want to compare the average score of students before and after a training program. See, I told you same sample but before and after case. In that scenario, you will go for paired sample t-test. Right? So, paired sample t-test. If you are comparing the proportion of vaccinated individuals between two cities, see the word proportion whenever there is a proportion, that means G-test for proportions. Okay. A researcher wants to test if the mean income of a sample differs from the known national average. See, known national average means they want to say population mean. So you have two data. One is sample mean, another is population mean. See, in that case, you compare a sample mean with a known population mean. So one sample t-test. Fine. You want to compare mean cholesterol level among three different diet plans. Okay. Three types of diet plan and you want to compare their mean cholesterol level. See, comparing means of three or more groups. Go for ANOVA. A data analyst is comparing the average sales between two different stores. The sample size small, less than 30. Less than 30 means it is not satisfying central limit theorem. I hope you know central limit theorem, you have to be greater than 30. Then what happens? If the sample size is greater than 30, then it behaves like normal distribution. That is the concept of central limit theorem. Anyway, here the sample size is less than 30 and population variance is unknown. See, the population variance is unknown and the sample size is less than 30. Okay, so you have to go for t-test. And now in t-test, which one? See, you are comparing average sales of two different stores. So in t-test, you have to compare two independent groups. So independent sample t-test. This one. Clear? Now you are analyzing gender versus preferred payment card. See, gender is a categorical data, payment card is a categorical data. So for categorical, no problem, chi-square. Go for chi-square. Which test is most appropriate when comparing the mean of one sample to a known population mean? See, one sample that is small, less than 30 to a known population mean. Whenever it is less than 30, you go for t-test. Now which one among t-test? To a known population mean. See, sample mean with a known population mean. So I will write 1 sample t-test. Okay. Now a medical study compares before and after blood pressure reading for same patients. Before and after case paired sample t-test. Okay. Now if you are comparing two independent group means and population standard deviation is known. See, known and greater than 30. So it will go for G test for means. Okay, G test is two types, for proportion, for means. Now you are checking if three teaching methods result in different student performance. What should you use? Three methods, whenever more than two, you will go for ANOVA. Okay. When population variance is unknown, the sample size is small, that means you will go for t-test. When known and sample size is large, you will go for g-test. Which test is best for categorical data? Chi-square. What happens when p-value is 0.03 and alpha? This is p less than alpha, then you reject null hypothesis. Which test is most suitable when your data consists of frequencies or counts of categories? Chi-square. If you are comparing the mean test score of 4 different classrooms, then which one will you use? ANOVA more than 2. The sample size is 50, population deviation known, then you will go for G test. Okay, so to summarize, if your data is categorical, go for chi-square. If it is more than 2 groups, then go for ANOVA. If it is proportions, then you have to go for G test for proportions. But if it is for means and population standard deviation is known and sample size greater than 30, then you will go for G test for means. Okay. Now means but population standard deviation is not known and sample size less than 30, then you will go for t-test. T-test is of three types, right? One is one sample t-test. When you know what is the population mean, you have one sample mean, you have known population mean. Independent t-test. Independent t-test means if you are comparing two separate means, and another is paired t-test. Paired t-test means that you are taking one sample but before after strategy. Okay, that's it. Okay, so meet in our next video. Till then, bye. Happy learning.